Yeah.
And you feel like you've kind of already answered this a bit, but with being proactive, about meditation, especially if in the future you want to be able to handle, difficult endeavors or things that happen, then I guess it kind of ties into that a little bit. But how do we make sure that we are kind of keeping our emotions in check and our and being stable and being able to kind of like handle difficult situations that come up like that have come up now, because life is always going to be like that. So how are people, maybe like you've already mentioned, be more proactive about preparing, I guess, a little bit yourself and being good within yourself to handle these kind of things?
I would recommend shadow work. So for those who don't know what shadow work is, because there's different types of practices for shadow work. What shadow work pretty much is learning how to deal with your personal shadows, dealing with your dark shadows. So I won't get into it much here, but if anyone wants to hit me up later, they can ask me about that. But there's different forms of shadow work that allows you to face your inner demon. And a lot of stuff that we're going through is because there's a demon that we haven't faced. So don't get me wrong. If I'm the victim of something, I'm not blaming me. Me as the victim shouldn't be blamed of what's happening. But what I'm saying is, when something truly affects you, it's because what you're seeing, there's something inside of you that reflects that. So if you're able to deal with that inner demon inside, because the thing is, we're capable of all those things that are happening right now. Every human being is
Mm-hmm.
capable of that, right? So we have these things that's in our id that 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 lies dormant, and for some people, of course, some of these things manifest into either good or manifest as something evil. But if you're able to tap into all the things that that lies dormant, that's evil, and you're able to face those inner demons, you are able to face that abuser. You're able to face that murder. You're able to face the person who assaulted or whatever the case is. If you're able to face that inner demon, I really believe that I can sit in the room with a KKK member and have a conversation with him and not want to tear him apart. I believe I can actually do that.
Wow.
Yeah, because I have had experiences of being the KKK member and seeing things from their perspective.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not saying I'm justifying what he does. I'm saying I see the perspective. So now that I see the perspective and I can see without judgment, now I can heal. Now I can forgive that person. Still, that person still needs to deal with the consequences, whatever the case is, but it can be done out of love. It doesn't have to be done out of hate. So I really believe
Wow.
that I can face any of these people in the room and not want to tear them apart because I understand that perspective. I don't agree with the perspective, but I understand where they're coming from.
And that's interesting, I think, too, with everything that you said today, that there's such a big there's so much to do with point of view and where you're coming from and how it's almost interesting to me when I think about spiritual enlightenment after speaking with you now. It's almost like once you reach a certain level, you can see kind of you're seeing from a different perspective now, mortal things, you know what I mean? And the things that maybe on a day to day we don't think of, maybe enough to have different perspectives or have more of a perspective than the one we have from
For
ourselves,
ourselves.
right?
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's really interesting, like that point of view changes maybe from like a direct one-on-one to seeing things a little more
From a broader
from above.
from
So
a broader standpoint. Because at first it's all about me, 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 me. And then it becomes us, 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 us. But that type of us, I may only be talking about my family, or I'm talking about my social circle, or I'm talking about my racial group, or I'm talking about my gender. So now that gets bigger, and you say us, us, us. Now that includes all human beings, and then I keep saying us, 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 and that spans into animals and all life forms. And you keep going up, and then it doesn't just include what's happening on planet Earth. Now I'm talking about what's happening in the galaxy or in the solar system, what's happening in the galaxy, what's happening in many galaxies, and what's happening in the entire universe. Because what happens in the moment of enlightenment, you experience being the entire universe. But you have to keep going
wow.
up, though. Us, 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 us. And after that, there is no us. After that is I am that. And when you reach that point of I am that, that's when you realize that you are Brahman, which is, you can say, this is not the correct term or the correct definition, but you can say it's the Hindu version of what they see as God. But it's different from the Christian perspective because the Christian perspective is very limited in terms of how they see God. So if you take Brahman and you take it from the largest perspective that includes absolutely everything in the entire universe, an individual can experience that. So it comes from the me, to the us, or the we, up to when there is no we, there is no me, there is no us. All there is presence.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. I have so many thoughts on that I would love to, because it's just like that really would be just amazing to just be in that kind of present state, because I feel like when we live in these times where there's so much going on and there's so much in our face and there's so much deliberately, you know what I mean? Especially in the Western world, we're just seeing so much. And you're right, it's so much about the me perspective. It's so interesting to think of seeing things from such a different light and seeing things in such a different way, that because you learn so much from that and you can just really digest everything that's going on very differently. And that's why I can imagine when you're saying that you're affected by what's going on, but you're
Oh
affected in
yeah,
such a different
deeply,
way.
deeply.
And that doesn't
But
take away
as
from
I
that.
take that on, as I watch what's happening and how it's affecting the people around me, um, I'm still affected by emotionally, but it's just I'm I'm witnessing it, but without bias. And
Wow,
that's a very
that is
hard place to
amazing.
get to be able to witness something that's happening and not judge it.
Hmm.
You still do all the things that are necessary, right, to help others who are in need, but you don't judge it. And when you don't judge something, or when you're no longer resisting something, that's when you're able to go through what's going on right now and not suffer from it. But that's the thing, though. If I'm no longer suffering from it, then if I'm no longer suffering from that, I'm able to help my fellow man, as opposed to helping someone who's wounded when I'm wounded myself. Right? I'm no good to
That's
anyone if I can't. If someone's drowning in water and I can't swim, I'm no good to anyone. So I got to learn how to swim so I can save you if you're drowning.
that's a great way to look at it. That's amazing. So